Hi everybody, and welcome to the Unit 4 U.S. History test, modified test for Part A of U.S. History. In this recording I'm going to be reading the test questions and the answer options to you, and also giving you some basic directional advice about how to go through the test and successfully save and submit. While you're working through the test, you want to make sure that you save your answers as you go. This will allow the test to save your work and for you to not lose your answers if something should happen to the connection. When you are done, you do need to click Submit for Grading. If you do not click Submit for Grading, it will not show up in the gradebook appropriately, and I will end up marking it with a 0 incomplete because I will not see the grade for it. So please make sure that you are addressing that and saving as you go and then submitting at the end. Okay. For your test today, you will be taking a test that will have 36 multiple choice questions, as you see here, and question 37 will be an essay question that will be talking about the Trail of Tears that occurred underneath Andrew Jackson's presidential administration. Let's start with number 1. Who invented bifocal eyeglasses and a clean burning stove and helped develop the U.S. postal system? Was that Thomas Jefferson, B. Benjamin Franklin, or C. Elkanah Watson? Number 2. Who is credited with putting the concept of using mass-produced interchangeable parts into practice? DeWitt Clinton, Eli Whitney, or Peter Cooper? Which of the two innovators improved American factory production by using methods from England? Samuel Slater and Francis Cabot Lowell, Eli Whitney and Cyrus McCormick, or the last option, John Deere and George Stephenson? Number 4, which inventors changed agriculture with machines that worked well on Midwestern prairies? Cyrus Reaper and Robert Plow, Cyrus McCormick and John Deere, or the last option, Thomas Jefferson and Eli Whitney? Number 5, how did geography affect the development of industry in New England? The small number of ports limited transportation and trade. Rocky soil and unpredictable climate made it unsuitable for commercial agriculture. Or large deposits of coal there kept factories running at full production. Number 6, what effect did 19th century trade embargoes and the War of 1812 have on American industry? Americans could not import British goods, so they increased their own production. Americans stockpiled British goods so that they would have them during the war. Or, the last option, American industry suffered because raw materials from Britain were not available. Number 7, which of the following was the major purpose of improving the roads in 19th century America? Was it to generate toll revenues for the federal government, to improve development of a market economy, or to provide greater comfort for citizens wishing to travel? Number 8, which construction project connected the Great Lakes to New York City? The National Road, the Erie Canal, or the Lancaster Turnpike? Number 9, what was an effect of Robert Fulton's development of steamboat travel? The cost of transporting goods became more expensive for farmers. Westward expansion became much easier. Trade along the Mississippi River began moving in both directions. Remember, as you're taking the test and listening to the recording, you can rewind, pause, or fast forward depending on what your needs are as you're working in the test. Number 10, in addition to transporting goods to market, what was another benefit of the growth of railroads? They immediately replaced canals as a source of transport, they created employment opportunities, or they quickly eliminated the need for horse-drawn wagons. Number 11, what was the greatest change that Samuel F.B. Morse's invention of the telegraph brought to communication? Was it more speed, greater accuracy, or additional detail? Number 12, how did this invention pictured here change the nature of communication in 19th century America? The printing key allowed the presses to be stopped and started as news was breaking. The electric battery provided the basis for the development of the telegraph. Or, the last option, the telegraph increased the speed of communication for both commerce and news. Number 13, how had the American electorate changed by the election of 1828? Thanks to the suffragist movement, women in some states were eligible to vote. With landholding requirements still in place, fewer men were eligible to vote. Or the last option, with landholding requirements eliminated, most white men were eligible to vote. Number 14. Why was the president elected by the House of Representatives in the election of 1824? The popular vote had ended in a three-way tie. No one had received an outright majority of electoral votes. Or the third option, the 12th Amendment required it. Number 15. What was the main objection that people had to John Quincy Adams' election by the House of Representatives? John Quincy Adams believed in a strong federal government, so many people objected to having him serve as president. Andrew Jackson was a military hero who many people wanted the House of Representatives to honor by electing him president. Or the last option, John Quincy Adams later appointed Henry Clay as Secretary of State, so people felt there had been some corrupt bargain made between them. Number 16. Who supported Andrew Jackson in the election of 1828? Native Americans who owned property, the common man, women who appreciated his devotion in his wife, Rachel. Number 17. Which of the following was not a campaign strategy in the 1828 election between Jackson and Adams? Mudslinging and negative campaigning, posters, or debating the opponent? Number 18. Which group describes the members of the Whig Party who opposed Andrew Jackson? Group A, small farmers and others that distrusted the banks, strong supporters of slavery, proponents of westward expansion, and people who questioned the market economy. Or were the people who opposed Andrew Jackson more like Group B, people opposed to slavery, merchants and bankers, moral reformers, especially with respect to Native Americans, and people who supported the market economy? Choose Group A or Group B. Number 19. Which of the following is a position that Andrew Jackson took during his administration? Against the Second Bank of the United States, in favor of the Second Bank of the United States, or supporter of high protective tariffs? A crisis erupted in the 1830s over the idea that a state could declare federal legislation invalid, prevent its enforcement, and possibly separate from the Union. What word describes this idea? Nullification, veto, or secession? Number 21. Although it began over the Tariff of Abominations, what was the real issue in the debate over nullification? Was it South Carolina versus Tennessee, states' rights versus federal authority, or the power and role of the vice president? Number 22. What compromise did Henry Clay achieve in order to resolve the nullification crisis? Congress agreed to lower the tariff, but also allowed President Jackson to use the military to enforce it. President Jackson agreed to withdraw troops from South Carolina, which agreed to pay the tariff. Or both Andrew Jackson and John C. Calhoun agreed not to run for president in 1836. Number 23. Why did Andrew Jackson veto the bill renewing the charter of the Second National Bank of the United States? The federal money supply was large enough, the Supreme Court had ruled that it was illegal, or it gave little credit to ordinary people. Number 24. What was Andrew Jackson's belief about Native Americans? They stood in the way of land acquisition by white men, they deserved government support, or that they should have full citizenship and voting rights. Number 25. What legislation was passed in 1830 relocating the 5 civilized tribes from their lands in the east to others further west? The Indian Removal Act, the Native American Relocation Act, Jackson-Clay Indian Compromise Bill. Number 26. How did the Cherokee initially respond to the Indian Removal Act? They planned westward caravans that increased their chances of survival. They challenged the legislation in the Supreme Court. Or they met with members of the Creeks, Choctaws, and Chickasaws and Seminoles to plan the move. Number 27. What was the name given to the forced movement of the Cherokee from their lands in the southeast to lands further west? The Indian Exodus, Chieftain's Trail, or the Trail of Tears? Number 28. Which group best describes what Jacksonian democracy meant? Group A, belief in the common man, racism, appointing supporters to office, belief in the Union, and willful disregard for legal authority? Or was it more like Group B, opposition to slavery, belief in strong federal fiscal authority, military leadership, elitism, or creation of opportunities for women? Was Jacksonian democracy more like Group A or Group B? 29. Why did people immigrate to the United States in the 19th century? Religious freedom and democracy, gold, potatoes, and freedom, or fertile land, jobs, and the chance for a better life? Number 30. Which group describes the South in the 1800s? Group A, cities grew rapidly, new factories were built, manufactured goods were exported, and immigrants sought jobs. Or was the South in the 1800s more like Group B? The economy relied on agriculture, cotton was the main crop, wealth was dependent on slavery, and many worked on small farms. Was it more like Group A or Group B? Number 31. Abolitionists spoke out against slavery, and the Underground Railroad helped slaves escape in the first half of the 19th century. Who were two important people in this movement? Nat Turner and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, John Tyler and Elizabeth Blackwell. Number 32. Which of the following was a major factor in the westward expansion in the early 1800s? Improved methods and systems of transportation, Indian removal and relocation, or the discovery of gold in California? What helped the United States make the transition from a subsistence economy to a market economy? The charter of the Second National Bank, federal economic policy adjustments, or transportation improvements and innovations? Number 34. Why did Lowell mill girls work despite the long hours, dangerous conditions, and health hazards? They enjoyed a sense of independence and empowerment. They earned substantial wages that helped support their families, or they had no choice because their fathers sold working rights to the mills. Number 35. Why was there a debate between the federal and state government over funding of transportation improvements? Each wanted credit for the new developments, transportation improvements were expensive, or there was a shortage of labor. Number 36. Which headline would most likely have appeared in a Western newspaper in the early 1800s? Indians joined town council, settlers arriving weekly, or new cotton growth surprising? Your last question is your essay question. Make sure to review pages in your textbook 300 to 301. This is the only resource you should be using for this essay, and information from internet sources or any other sources will not be accepted. Look at the section called Efforts to Assimilate. Name, then describe one way the Cherokee people agreed to try the civilization program for 10 points. Look at the section called Trail of Tears. President Andrew Jackson believed that Native Americans needed to be moved or forced west of the Mississippi. Name and then describe one reason these events became known as the Trail of Tears. That portion is worth 10 points as well, for a total of 20. When you write your answers, use complete sentences, supporting details, accurate information, and provide the page numbers for where you found the information in the textbook. Your rubric, or the outline of how I'm going to grade your essay, is here. For advanced, proficient, basic, and below basic ratings, you'll see the point values that you will get along with the description for what is required. At the top here is the requirement. For example, name and describe one effort to assimilate, and the second column, name and describe one reason for the Trail of Tears. I wish you luck on your test. If you need any help at all working on the essay, we will present this in the test review and go over this with you in the test review. So watch the test review before you take the test, or pause here before you submit to watch that if you have not already. Contact me with any questions you have. Remember, save your answers and then submit for grading. Good luck.